Welcome to Caregiver Cast with Mary Elaine. Are you overwhelmed raising a family, working full-time, caring for a parent or grandparent? It can be challenging when you're doing it alone. Caregiver Cast helps busy, burned-out professionals reduce their stress and overwhelm to create a better caregiving experience for themselves and their loved one. Caregiver Cast brings caregivers together with experts who provide information in a variety of areas. In each episode, you'll get tips on topics such as finance, legal, medical, self-care, community resources, mindset, and more. We're here to make your caregiving journey a more rewarding one. Acquire the confidence and skills to be a more capable caregiver by implementing the resources and strategies from these expert thought leaders. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. And now here's your host, Mary Elaine.
Hi, I'm Mary Elaine. Welcome to Caregiver Cast. My guest speaker today is JoAnna, who will be talking to you about diet and depression and changes in your health, in your diet, so that you can become much more vibrant. So before I formally introduce JoAnna Johnston to you, I'd like to give you some information about her. JoAnna is the creator of Simple Diet Solutions, best known for simplifying the process of diet and lifestyle change. She brings over 10 years experience using diets to heal a variety of health conditions. She looks forward to helping you finally get the results you're looking for. JoAnna, talk about your experience with diet and your depression and how long it took for you to see results from using the keto diet.
Alrighty. Well, it was honestly something that I discovered by accident. It had not occurred to me to try a diet solution for depression. Nobody was talking about any such thing. I didn't know that there was any such thing. And so, I tried out the keto diet for other reasons. I heard people had better energy and, some of this kind of stuff. And I was really only looking for incremental results at the time, honestly. But I tried a 5-day fasting challenge, and I started implementing the keto regimen. And it was about 5 or 6 weeks after doing that that I realized that a lot of the intrusive thoughts and just kind of that like dark cloud that had been with me for over 2 decades at that time had just sort of evaporated.
That's incredible. So give us some ideas about some of the mechanisms regarding depression, and what do people with depression need to look for?
Sure. Well, once I implemented this keto diet and saw the results, which were surprising and, not anything that had been previously advertised, I wondered, well, clearly this is what's happened, but how and why. And so I went looking and I read a lot of research, and it turns out that one of the primary mechanisms underlying depression is actually chronic inflammation. And among the dietary contributors to chronic inflammation are sugar, vegetable and seed oils, and actually dairy. And I had eliminated dairy some time back as a result of other work that I was doing with other family members. But the sugar and the seed oils, of course, keto is, basically no carbs, so no sugar automatically. And then there's also often a focus on saturated fats, right, from healthy, sustainable grass-fed animal sources and that kind of thing. And as I dug into it, I realized that these were actually the things that were causing the inflammation that was underlying my depression. And so as soon as I stopped eating those, I had results in a very short period of time, without medications or anything.
That's incredible. So what are some of the myths then about depression that people should be focused on so that they could start making a difference in their lives?
For sure. Well, the biggest myth that that I think I've found is actually what they call the serotonin hypothesis. I took some medications for a while and really didn't have a good experience with them. And the more I read about it, the more I found that the actual link between serotonin and depression is not actually that well supported.
Mm.
And so among the things that I discovered along the way is that low serotonin was not my problem. And I believe that that there's a lot of a sort of a one size fits all approach out there when it comes to treating depression by trying to raise serotonin. Too much serotonin can actually be worse than
Mm.
not enough, right? And
Mhm.
and also, kind of playing around with trying to change some of these neurotransmitter and hormone levels, without looking at the underlying mechanism, I don't believe to be an effective approach. And so the serotonin myth, um, and also the idea, that there's something wrong in our thinking. Um,
Mhm.
and talk therapy certainly has its place, and I do believe it can be helpful. But really what I noticed, like the effect that I noticed and how I knew my depression was gone, was that as I said, these intrusive thoughts, these depressive thoughts, these self-depreciating thoughts, right,
Mhm.
that had been with me so long that I would have said I believed them.
Mhm.
If you had asked me, I would have said these were my beliefs, right?
Mhm.
Um, something like talk therapy will spend months or even years going around about these beliefs, right? These repetitive thoughts that may not actually be a belief at all.
Right.
Because as I said, after about 5-6 weeks, after changing my diet,
Mhm.
um, those thoughts, they just evaporated and they don't come anymore.
That's really incredible. So talk about the any other myths and what people can do regarding those. So we're going to look at the serotonin. We're looking at the thoughts that we're having. What else do we need to look for?
Well, I just feel it's really important to take a holistic approach.
Okay.
And it's like we have this separation, right, between like medical conditions and like mental conditions. And they've tried to bring those together, right, with the introduction of drugs for mental conditions. There's some level of acknowledgement that there is a physical component, but um the drug therapy approach is often kind of a band-aid
Mm.
that doesn't get to the underlying cause. And holistic therapies and holistic approaches get underneath and they look for the root cause. And so I've found that working with the physicality through diet can be an extremely effective means of dealing with these so-called mental conditions, right, such as depression, anxiety, even the autism that we mentioned before.
Wow. I'm still kind of blown away about the autism piece. So I hope that you're doing that with depression and with the people with autism. So talk about your training in addition to helping your son and your family members. Um, are there any other certifications that you have that allow you to help a broad range of people?
Yeah, so I do have degrees in various sciences and a background in research and writing technical um, publications of various kinds. And I also have a life coaching certification.
Mhm.
And so I have the background to um, to really help people from both directions, right? Um, because we now know that that our thoughts can affect our health, right?
Mhm.
And that too much negative thinking can make us get physically ill, right? And what I've learned is that being physically ill can actually create negative thinking. And so,
Great
so
point.
yeah, and so that was the real interesting discovery for me. And so I do have a background in training in both of those aspects.
Okay, thank you. What kind of people seek your services?
The clients that do best with me, Mary Elaine, are people who are very effective in their lives already, people
Mhm,
who are go-getters and who are willing to do what it takes to get the results that they want in their lives.
mhm.
Oftentimes what happens is that such folks just aren't even aware that there's a solution to be pursued. Uh,
Exactly, because nobody
yeah,
talks about those.
that's right. That's right. And so when they find out, they're very willing to just get right to work and make the changes and see the results. And those are my best clients.
Okay, thank you. And how do they find you then, if they're go-getters and looking for change in their lives, in their diet in particular?
Yeah. So I do have a couple of um, resources. I believe you will be providing a link to my
Mhm.
free ebook.
Yes.
It's Yes, it's entitled "Maximize Your Performance by Optimizing Your Diet,"
Mhm.
and it includes some of the things that we've talked about today, as well as several other kind of general recommendations. Really things that probably nobody should eat, and it goes a little bit into the why of that. Um, and then, of course, if people want more help, they can contact me. There's more information how to do that at that link that you'll be providing.
Okay, thank you. What kind of conditions have you worked with that have seen dramatic results by making dietary changes?
Well, of course, my best success story will probably always be my son,
I know.
who was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when he was 7, and 10 years later, no longer qualified for such diagnosis. It's now been about 15 years, and he lives a normal, productive adult life. And he's out there on his own, being his own person, and does still follow his diet. And so, but it really doesn't interfere, with his adult life. He just occurs for other people like a picky eater, and he's okay with that. Uh, and so I have also worked with, of course, in addition to resolving my own depression, I've also worked with people to stop snoring and
Mhm.
to reverse diabetes, as well as several other sort of more obscure things. So yeah, definitely if people have mystery conditions or even um, specific diagnoses,
Mhm.
there is a good chance that an elimination diet can help them. And so I would love to talk to them about that.
Awesome. I like the way that you're open to working with people who have mystery illnesses that no one can diagnose. But it seems to me like the elimination diet seems to be the best answer to really get, like you said, at the core of what's really going on with someone.
It does really get underneath a lot of stuff. And the thing with these with a lot of these conditions is that they often have underlying food allergies and food sensitivities. And so when we
Mhm.
find out what those are and eliminate those foods, the symptoms go away, just right quick. And as I said previously, I find that 5 to 6 weeks is a common time frame to see all kinds of symptoms disappear. A few things like diabetes take a little bit longer, but 3 to 4 months is typically sufficient time to see results with that as well. And so when you consider that these are chronic conditions that people may have been dealing with for years,
Mhm.
a few weeks to a few months is quite a reasonable time frame to start seeing relief.
Oh, definitely, I would agree with that. So do people go through and finish working with you? Do they ever come back if they needed to, I guess, get a reset for the diet that they're working with?
Yeah, it's a little bit like peeling an onion. Oftentimes, the people will come to me for help with one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll see results with that. And, then there'll be, some other nagging thing, or perhaps um, you know, I some often people have multiple diagnoses, right? And they may have one thing that they want to focus on first, but then we come back around to other stuff. Um, and and as I've said, with many of these conditions, people don't realize that there's even a solution available. And so even if there's a diagnosis, they just sort of take it for granted as something that, like, oh well, they're just going to have to cope with or deal with or live with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we are often able to peel back many layers, and uh, get people resolved of often multiple conditions. Yeah, so we certainly can do that as well.
That's exciting to see that, diet has such an impact on the health conditions that we have, and that we really don't necessarily have to have those health conditions if we would just learn how to eat properly. So,
I don't believe that almost any condition is inevitable. I've been able to see at least some improvement with every condition that I've ever tried a dietary change with. And
okay,
so there's really the sky's the limit. Um, it's always worth a try.
awesome. I think everybody should come see you. So give us some 3 takeaways, JoAnna, from your presentation today.
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing to realize is that depression is not a life sentence, and doesn't matter how long you've had it, um, and that there are things that you can do.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I've mentioned about the diet can be helpful.
Mhm.
And I know that many people in our audience today are caregivers, and that oftentimes folks in that situation are very wonderful, very giving people, and they don't give themselves enough. And so the second thing I would say is to be sure to take, even just 5 minutes. It doesn't seem like a long time, but it makes a big difference. Whether that's a little bit of journaling or a walk in nature, or whatever it is that um, refreshes and soothes you. Uh, just do it. It'll make everything so much better, and just a little bit uh, every day. And um, and then finally, I would say, reach out to someone like myself, or to someone like Mary Elaine, who is available and willing to help people in your situation. There are a lot of us who have been through it. There are fewer of us who've come out of it. But most of the time, when we have, we want to help. And um, again, often those who are in positions of giving help forget to ask for help, and so don't forget to do that. And whether it's me, or whether it's Mary Elaine, or somebody else that you resonate with, um, just just go ahead and get yourself some help. You're not alone, and there is a solution.
Wow, that's really incredible. I agree with you. Self-care, journaling, yes. Taking 5 minutes is really pretty doable, I think, for a lot of caregivers. And I think the next big thing that you mentioned was just asking for help. There are people like you and I who have been through it and understand it, and are willing to help. And there's always someone who can help. So if they just reach out to you or I or someone else, they'll be in a much better position than they are right now. So thank you for those takeaways. Tell us, I know you mentioned you have a free offer. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, JoAnna?
Well, yeah. So in my free resource, it's an ebook, and you'll get it by using the link that Mary Elaine will provide. Um, you'll find more information about how diet affects health, kind of in a general way. and some recommendations that I actually recommend everybody consider. And so depending on the situation, some of you who are in positions of caregiving may even be able to help some of those you care for by implementing some of these recommendations with them. Because in it, I really identify, my sort of top 5 things nobody should eat.
Mhm.
And as it turns out, those comprise quite a lot of what the average person eats. And so, there's something to the old saw about you are what you eat. Your cells are constantly replenishing themselves. They have to get that raw material from somewhere. If you eat junk, you're going to feel like junk. And that goes for caregivers and for those for whom they're caring as well. So definitely hope you'll take advantage of that. And there'll be more information there about how to get further information for me if that's what you want.
Well, thank you very much for that free offer. I think that caregivers could take, like you said, at least 5 minutes for self-care or just implementing some strategy that you're recommending. Because if they're in great health, then they're much better off dealing with the person that they're caring for. And if they can make the changes for both of them at the same time, it seems to be like a no-brainer. So thank you very much for mentioning that and for the offer. JoAnna, it's been a pleasure to have you on today. You have given us so much great information about diet and how you, in depression or just any medical condition that one would have, and that the importance of a diet is so critical in terms of making you the best person that you can be without having to feel the fatigue or the depression or the diabetes that you may have. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Caregiver Cast today. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. Get involved with the show. Send your email to mpetrucci2002@gmail.com. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Caregiver Cast.